How's it going, Jets fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Moran, and we got the first week 1 opponent coming up in the Baltimore Ravens in just a couple days here. We got football back tonight, the Rams versus the Buffalo Bills. Very excited about that to get a regular season game, a meaningful game. We'll see if Matt Stafford suits up. I know he has an elbow issue that's been bothering him. They've been trying to mitigate his reps, making sure that he's healthy for the season, but still bothering him a little bit. He's been playing through pain for many, many years now. And then the Bills, hopefully take a loss, so the Jets can, sneak into that race in the division and whatnot. But I'll tell you what, this game against the Ravens is no pushover. It is going to be a very difficult one, especially since Zach Wilson's out. And, most of the team is healthy. Now, Dwayne Brown just popped up with a shoulder injury today. They don't really know the severity of that. So that would be a huge wrench thrown into the mix just a couple days before Sunday. But we want to talk about 5 keys to beating the Ravens. What is it going to take to overcome a very, very good team that has fantastic roster construction, a good offensive line? Of course, you have Lamar Jackson, a really dangerous rushing attack, and, a pretty solid defense to boot. So it's going to be tough. But Ryan, before we dive into the 5 keys to beating this team, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Alex. Getting excited. I mean, it's a great opportunity for the Jets going up against a very established organization. And I think it's an opportunity for them to really prove that, what they've built these last 2 off seasons is, going to really start to show up. And I think just most Jets fans really want to see a competitive football game. The Dwayne Brown injury puts a dent into things, exactly like you said. And it's going to be interesting. Tackle depth has been a concern, I think, for most Jet fans really all off season. And, you're already seeing here early on, it's a concern if Brown can't go in this game. I mean, is Max Mitchell as a rookie going to go thrown out there, or I feel like we have an idea really on what Connor McDermott is at this point. And, really the trickle-down effect is George Fant get moved to left tackle. So a lot of moving parts and concerns. Let's hope for the best with Brown. And, overall, I mean, this is going to be a tough game for the Jets. But, I think at the end of the day, you look at last year, beat the AFC champion Bengals at home, took the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Tennessee Titans at home. There's no reason that late in this game the Jets can't at least, have a fighter's chance.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want this team to compete. They have a very good roster on paper. Now it just comes down to execution and discipline. But the first key here that I want to discuss is establishing the run. Now, part of the overall, the 5th key that we're going to discuss is more of team-oriented stuff, but establishing the run does a couple things for you, right? It sets up the passing game, it sets up play action, but it also helps you maintain time of possession. Now, keeping the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands should be priority number 1 for the Jets. Now, establishing the run is easier said than done against a pretty solid Baltimore defense, as they are every single year. But Michael Carter, Breece Hall, more than capable of moving the chains. You have a rebuilt offensive line with Laken Tomlinson, Elijah Vera Tucker. Hopefully Dwayne Brown suits up, George Fant, and of course, Connor McGovern at center there. So pretty solid group. Pretty solid push they can get up front. And, Tyler Conklin at tight end, CJ Uzoma can do some good stuff, especially, getting to the second level and opening up some gaps for the running backs. But I would like to see Breece Hall utilize that acceleration, utilize that power, showcase that, one cut, get vertical, and just churn out those yards, man. Just get those first downs, move the ball down the field, strategically. You don't have to hit big bombs downfield all the time. You can really just move the chains gradually, using the running game as a catalyst for that, which opens up play action and the passing game. I think that's going to be probably the best way for the Jets to stay in this game. The best way for them to win this game is just running all over Baltimore. If they can set the stage in the running game, it'll open up the passing game. Baltimore traditionally has a very good run defense, and it's hard to stop them in that regard. But now that Wink Martindale's gone into the defensive coordinator position, we'll see kind of how that transitions, how their defense kind of takes form in the first week after a long, long time having a very similar blitz-heavy structure that predicates itself on stopping the run and getting after the quarterback. So, Ryan, now when you're looking at establishing the run here, who do you think takes the reins? Do you think Michael Carter sets the stage, or do you think Breece Hall kind of gets the majority of the reps here?
I think it'll be a balance, really probably close to split in half just because it's Breece's first game. And, you want to make sure that you kind of built him up and gain experience before you really just make him a bell cow type of player. And I think you just look at the construction of the Jets offense with Michael LaFleur's scheme and really what Joe Douglas has invested into with the interior of this offensive line. I mean, the Jets have paid, a left guard and a center a lot of money and traded up to get a right guard. So that's a lot to invest in the interior. And I think when you look at the Ravens defense across the board, it's a pretty balanced unit. But I think when you just look at the personnel, if there's one thing that the Jets can exploit in this game, like I said the other day, I think it's really just up the middle at linebacker, the interior defensive line. I think what they have on the outside and, in the secondary is really, really good. And, you want to really minimize that and, to really get that play action pass game going against, some great corners and safeties like they have in coverage. The Jets are going to have to be able to run the football. And like you said, controlling the time possession is going to be crucial in this game.
That is a fact. And the second one here is containing Lamar. Second key, got to stop Lamar. He is a menace on the run. You can't really contain him, honestly. It doesn't matter how fast your edge rushes are. It doesn't matter how quick they are. He's quicker, and he's like a ghost, man. He just freaking appears places and he disappears, and he's so fast and hard to stop. They have to have probably a spy on him. They have to have some sort of linebacker spy on him throughout the game, or at least an edge rusher spy, just keeping that contained and forcing him back into the middle of the pack. And hopefully your interior lineman can swallow him up and give the Jets a chance to stop him before he gets running. So, there's kind of the reality of the situation. The defensive line is going to have to set the stage in this one. They are going to have to stop Lamar Jackson from running the football. He is not going to beat you with his arm for the most part. He's going to beat you with his legs. That's what he does, man. He beats you with his legs. And if you can stop him, you can give yourself a much better chance at winning. So, who do you think has to step up here? What player you think in specific? I think it's Carl Lawson and Quinnen Williams, those two guys. I think Carl Lawson's got to push him back towards the middle. I think Quinnen Williams, using that speed and agility, has to swallow him up and stop him before he takes off. I think those are the two guys that I kind of focus in on and say, they are the ones that have to stand out.
For sure. I mean, containing Lamar is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, that's half the battle if the Jets are going to keep this game competitive. And it's very imperative because, the structure and the way that the Jets defensive line is built, it's very much so on attacking with, a fast first step and initial speed off the ball and really imposing your will. It's a very, one gapping type of system. And, they got to really make sure that they are, sound and keep their gap integrity, keeping him in the well, so to speak. And I think it's interesting, obviously Carl Lawson, John Franklin Myers on the edge on early downs. I think you're really going to see JFM, start out just, as a run defender really playing at the end. I think Jordan Whitehead is potentially a guy to really keep an eye on in terms of containing Lamar, playing in the box where we know Whitehead really thrives. He's a guy just with his, imposing presence and his physicality alone, can really, make plays in pursuit and, whether it's getting in the backfield, going from sideline to sideline, staying in the box. I think him and, I'd probably even say CJ Mosley just with, his smarts, his experience. Obviously he, played with the Ravens for 5 years and, knows some of those guys on that team pretty well. So it's obviously a tough task containing Lamar, but, it's something if the Jets are going to win this game or keep it close, down to the end, they're going to have to find a way to do.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to find a way to do that. But number 3, key 3, lock down Mark Andrews. So, whether that be Michael Carter II, whether that be CJ Mosley, whether that be even Sauce Gardner, honestly, I'd put a freaking cornerback like Sauce Gardner on Mark Andrews and just say, just man cover him the entire game. If you're Sauce, you're tall, you're lanky, you have that pterodactyl wingspan. Mark Andrews, physical in nature, very, very athletic for a guy of his size. I would want my best cover corner probably, or at least the longest corner on him. So at least you can get up there and compete on those more physical jump balls. I think that, if you're looking at CJ Mosley to man up against him, you're looking at a problem. I think Michael Carter II, maybe if he goes into that jumbo slot role, probably a problem. I don't think Michael Carter II has enough size to guard him. Stopping, if you're going to play zone, he's going to expose you. Mark Andrews is arguably the best tight end in football next to Travis Kelce. Stopping him is pretty much impossible, but you can try to limit him. He carried my fantasy team through the playoffs last year. He's an absolute stud. Honestly, I would not be opposed to the idea of just manning him up again, like with Sauce and just letting Rashad Bateman go up against DJ Reed on the outside. Like that might be my method here, my strategy. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown's gone. He's with the Cardinals now. The Ravens don't have a crazy deep wide receiver unit. I wouldn't be opposed to just manning him up with Sauce and seeing if he can at least hamper him, at least put him in a spot where he's not going to just destroy this Jets defense. But the problem is, if you're starting him in line, it's hard for a cornerback to kind of guard an inline tight end, especially if they're going to block, because then you're talking about, all right, we'll just run the football on you, and our tight end's going to just destroy Sauce Gardner, destroy your cornerback. So I'd say only if he's kind of in that jumbo slot role, I put a corner on him. But in line, you're kind of relying on those linebackers and that strong safety role there to pick up the slack. So we'll see how it goes. But, what is your strategy in hoping to lock down Mark Andrews or at least limit him to a degree?
For sure. I mean, I love your point on Sauce, but then again, like you said, they would just leave him close to the line of scrimmage and, make Sauce have to compete against the run, which is obviously something the Jets did speak about this summer and how, that's a transition for rookie corners from college to the NFL. And it's really tough. I mean, the Jets put Michael Carter II, their slot corner a couple times last year, whether it was Mike Gesicki was the most notable game late in the season against the Dolphins. And like you said, just from a height weight standpoint, I mean, it's really tough. And Andrews can move well at that size. He can beat you down the field vertically. So it's really going to be interesting to see. Like you said, I don't know if it's CJ Mosley, if it's Sauce, if it's Michael Carter II, if it's maybe LaMarcus Joyner. You talk about a guy with some corner background, in his experience. So it's really going to be interesting. It's going to be a collective effort, in all honesty. I don't think one guy really slows down Mark Andrews. And you really said it best. I mean, if you can contain him, look, the rest of this offense in terms of the skill talent is really nothing serious to write home about.
Yeah, that's going to hamper Lamar Jackson's ability to throw the football for the most part. But, that's why Mark Andrews is going to be such a lethal target for him in the passing game. They have a couple of pretty good tight ends. Maybe they'll use 12 personnel a little bit more frequently. So Jets have to be wary of that. But the fourth key here is the pass rush has to hit home. You know what I mean? Like this, stopping Lamar Jackson, you watched Miami Dolphins last year. The pass rush has to put pressure on him. He will make mistakes if you put pressure on Lamar Jackson. If you put enough pressure on him, he'll throw the ball up in the air and 50-50s, and their receivers aren't going to out jump guys like Sauce. Or even Jordan Whitehead. So, this is an opportunity for them to showcase that really solid pass rush that they have, contain him, put him on blast, and hopefully, walk away with a close victory here. But again, stopping Lamar is a lot easier said than done. He's so quick. He's so fast. Even if you're a super athlete like most of these guys are, it doesn't matter. He's better. He's faster and quicker. So, someone's got to step up and have a really good game. They have to have a spy on him at all times, just watching his movements, just following him around. It's going to leave the coverage a little bit less, proficient. It's going to leave gaps open in the secondary, having to spy on him all the time. But ultimately, you look at his statistics, Lamar, and he doesn't actually throw for that many yards every year. He really gets a lot of production on the ground. His touchdowns last year were down a little bit, but the yardage still is just crazy, insane. He gets like over 1,000 rushing yards a year, so it's just hard to stop. But why do you think the pass rush has to really step up here? Who do you think kind of makes an impact in the most here?
For sure. I think it's similar to what I said, with the first point, and you look at how Joe Douglas and Michael Floor, have kind of built this offense. I think you look to the defensive side of the ball and what the Jets have invested. We've talked about the concerns of the run defense, but the Jets, arguably their top strength across their football team is not just the headlining starters that they have rushing the quarterback along the defensive line, but even the depth. And I think this is a game where it's not just Carl Lawson, John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Jermaine Johnson. It's going to be the Jacob Martins and the Bryce Huffs and the Michael Clemens of the world. This depth of the defensive line, the Jets have, invested so much into. And I think you look at the Ravens offensive line, it's definitely good, but like the Jets have the talent to, really make an impact, especially on third downs. They got to get off the field. You can't allow them to extend drives and, in turn, keep the Jets offense off of the field, like we talked about with the time possession earlier on. And, ultimately, for the coverage to hold up and to limit guys like Mark Andrews in the air, the pass rush has got to be able to get home for the Jets in this one.
Yes, it does. And the fifth key here is kind of a multitude of things, winning the turnover battle, and most just like team stats, like time of possession and whatnot. But I think the turnover battle is really, always a pretty substantial factor in winning and losing football games, right? If they can force Lamar Jackson to throw a couple interceptions, maybe fumble, you're talking about giving your offense another opportunity. And right now with Joe Flacco under helm, I don't have much faith that Joe Flacco is going to be lighting up opposing teams for 3-4 passing touchdowns. Zach Wilson, still obviously has a long way to go before I can trust him to do that as well. But I'd rather Zach Wilson and his mobility and just kind of at least watching his development unfold against good teams like the Ravens and, knowing that there's progress being made here. But Joe Flacco, he's a veteran, former guy from Baltimore. So he knows what they like to do over there. Again, I don't exactly know how their defense is going to be changing after Wink Martindale's departure. It could be a little bit more zone coverage based instead of heavy man, single high coverage, blitzing. So I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do there, but this is an opportunity for Joe Flacco to showcase that veterancy, keep the ball safe, don't make any dumb decisions. And that's kind of part of the reason why I want this Jets team to establish the run, because, if you establish the run and you're running effectively and you can keep kind of relying on that, the chances of turning the ball over reduce significantly. So I will say like that will be the number one catalyst. If they can run the ball, pick up first downs, move the chains that way, they can really control the entire pace of the game. And when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson, any second he could take off, any second he could score a touchdown. So you really have to be careful about that. Which is my primary concern. So, what do you think the importance here is of winning the turnover battle and really just maintaining time possession?
For sure. I mean, it's always those key team stats that really win and lose you games in this league. And we obviously touched up on the time of possession and the third down efficiency, the turnovers, like you said. I mean, it comes down to the Jets in this game when you're going up against such an established team that's won so much, in recent years. Like, you cannot beat yourself in this game. That's pretty plain and simple. You saw the Jets, in that third preseason game against the Giants, like I said yesterday, they can move the football, but you can't stall drives by beating yourself with, fumbles, interceptions. Another thing I'm going to touch up on here in the team stat category, penalties. You've got to limit those in this game. And the last one really is just red zone efficiency. I mean, when the Jets get inside the 20, they got to punch it in for 6. You don't know how many of those opportunities you're going to get in this game. I think, like you said, the veteran experience of Joe Flacco, knowing he's going up against his former team, I think you can expect him to really rise up in this game. And I think the main concern really just offensively is Dwayne Brown, and if he's not going to be able to go, really, it feels such a void for the Jets that I don't really know what the answer is going to be. But ultimately, I think you got to keep it plain and simple. Spread the ball around, get this passing game going off of play action, and you can't beat yourself. You got to limit the mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to give you guys some insight into this wide receiver and tight end core that the Jets are facing off against on Sunday, they got Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. Those are the two guys that I'm looking at. Isaiah Likely apparently looked really, really, really good in camp and during preseason. So the 12 personnel concept makes a lot of sense to me if they're going to be running that way. Lamar Jackson loves his big body tight end, so I would not be surprised to see them put Isaiah Likely in the slot a couple times, maybe a jumbo situation. They got Rashad Bateman, who they have a lot of expectations for, take a step forward. Devin Duvernay, he's decent. James Proche, Demarcus Robinson, and Tylan Wallace, who's they also have some excitement about. So like I said, wide receiver position is rather thin, not many big time players there. But their tight end position is very loaded, and they could make some noise just using those tight ends pretty frequently. So I am interested to see how the Jets game plan around stopping those guys. But I'd always really appreciate any perspectives below on this Jets Ravens game, any ideas about how the Jets can stop them, any additional keys that you might have, honorable mentions, happy to discuss in the comments as always, my friends. But I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets episode.